It is December, and let me tell you, man, if you are only reading headlines that are talking about recession, doom and gloom, interest rates, all this kind of stuff, that's not going to be fun. You need to look at the numbers, what's happening, and kind of dig under that to get a good sense of really what's going on in the Alberta, in the Calgary real estate market, and that is what we're here to do today. With so much talk of recessions happening as we enter into 2023, it's no wonder that a lot of consumers are just kind of sitting on the sidelines not knowing what to do. Well, today we're going to dive into our numbers, and halfway through at the last part of this video, we have some special guests who are actually from Toronto and from Vancouver, and we're going to chat with them about what they're seeing in their markets. But let's dive into the Calgary numbers here first, and here we go. So sales versus new listings in Calgary. So one of the things that we've talked about on, in our videos in the past is you can see these little dips right here. So these are when there are less listings coming on the market over a Christmas timeframe than there are sales that are happening. Well, what's happening here? We are at that actually already in November. And so we are at that point where we have more sales than there are new listings coming on the market. And every time we have seen these little dips, and when that switches that way over the last 10 years, what happens? Well, this is when we started seeing, so if you look back here, this was 2013. And you got 2013 down here. Well, this is when we saw that price increase in 2014. And we all know what happened over the last little bit, right? 2020, 2021, we saw these price jumps. So could we be looking at a market that we're walking into where we could see prices increasing next year? We could. Now, there's a lot of other factors, interest rates that have been rising all year. I mean, if we would looked backwards a year ago and said, here's where we're going to be with the number of, what the percentage of interest rates are, all of that, there's no way we could guess. So many economists and banks and people who are way smarter than me and have way more in their resources that they can pull and look, they got it wrong. And so where are we going to be next year? I truly don't know. But we can look at what some of this data says and get a little bit of a sense of where we think we're going to go. Now, if you were planning on making a change in this coming year, we would encourage you and invite you to interview our team. We have a great track record. We have helped a family every 17 and a half hours move this past year. And not only that, we have actually had over 1.1 million video views on our YouTube channel here. So if you're watching this, you're thinking of making a change, we want to work with you. We would love to be invited to the table. Let's have a conversation and let's help you make that change. The other thing is months of inventory. This is a real important number. And if you remember again, anything in this middle spot here is considered a balanced market where it's really decently good for buyers and sellers. Up here is buyers and down here is sellers. So less than 2.5 months of inventory in Calgary is what we consider a seller's market. And so, as you can see, we have been in a seller's market for a while. And if anything, we are actually seeing a downward trend as we come into November and December. And so that is what's happening across the whole city. All right. Last video, we talked about some of the interesting numbers on here, because if we look back all the way to 2013, and that's the blue line, we actually have the lowest number of listings on the market historically over the last 10 to 11 years. And that to me is showing there's kind of like a confusion in the market, right? So if you're only reading headlines and you're only looking at kind of data and you're only kind of getting understanding of what the market's like, and it's based off of headlines, right? Recession, interest rates, all these kind of things. Bank of Canada. We've never talked about the Bank of Canada as much as we do now. All of these things that are seeing, we end up having confused consumers. People who have been planning on making changes over the last couple of years are just kind of pausing. There are a lot of buyers who are actually ready and willing to pull the trigger in our market, but there's just not enough inventory. And so we were talking with our team this morning, some of them, and we kind of said, yeah, it kind of feels like a normal market, where it kind of ebbs and flows, and coming into Christmas, it usually slows down. But then one agent on our team, he said, yeah, but the thing is, you can actually feel this energy underneath. It wouldn't be a normal, in quotations, a normal type of feeling of a market if there was inventory. Because if there was inventory, it would be selling. And I will show you those numbers shortly after and explain a little bit, because we have a lot of high-end inventory that's sitting in this market. But here, the number of listings that came on this month is still the lowest that we've seen in Calgary for the last 10 years. And the number of sales is in the top part. So we are still seeing a decent number of sales happening when you actually look year over year and compare what's kind of been happening historically. Now, the actives versus solds and then pending numbers. So there has been this trend, and we've seen this, but the number of actives has been just dropping. And that's kind of what we're just talking about. But the number of solds has actually stayed steady. So there is this upward pressure. That's a funny little arrow. There's this upward pressure that is keeping what's there and selling. So good stuff is selling quickly. One of the agents this morning said, it's only garbage that's out there right now. Now, if your house is listed, it's not garbage. But what she means by that is it's either overpriced, it's not prepped properly, or you just haven't done the things that you need to do. We, in the last couple of weeks, have had a lot more calls from you who are watching saying, hey, I've been trying to sell my house and it's not working. And I need to sell this thing, but I can't figure it out. And sometimes it's actually not even the price. The price is where it should be, but there's the preparation. There's doing that extra work. There's the things that buyers are picky about, and you have to look at that. Not every real estate agent is going to tell you how to do this stuff, but we will, I promise, because you got to reach out to us. And if you're coming and you've basically at the end of your agreement and you're going, I need to sell this place and I don't know why it's not selling, reach out to us. As you go into this year, into next year, or finishing this year, going into next year, we have the tools and the resources and the knowledge to be able to help you sort that out for your home here in Calgary. Now, when we look at the actual average list price and then the sales. So you can see there is this trend of the average list price going up. So why is that happening when the sale price is kind of staying down? So what I did is I pulled and looked at, and originally my initial thought on this was people are pricing their homes too high. Right? They're not being realistic. They're just overpricing it and it's not selling. Now, that could be the case. But what I did look at is I started pulling up these price points. I'm not going to go through every single one, but here's the numbers from yesterday that I pulled, all the actives in the city and their price ranges. And this is all types of product and everything. It's condos, it's houses, it's everything. And there are about 1,206 units that are over $600,000 out of the 2,710 active listings at the time of when I pulled this number. So that means 45% of our market is sitting in 600,000 plus. So there are a lot of higher priced properties on the market right now, and things, because there's a lot of people who are ready and willing, but they're looking for 600 and under. Okay. And that's true. Like we said that this morning to the team, and every single agent had at least one buyer, if not two or three, that are just sitting there waiting. So if you have a home and you're going, I don't know if I should sell, I don't know if I should move, I don't know what I should do, and your value is most likely under 6 or under 7, there is a lot of people who are ready and willing to take it off your hands for a good price, right? So that's the other part. We got sales versus new listings. So this is only detached homes. So I'm going to run some quick numbers so you can kind of get a sense of the detached, the semi-detached apartments and row houses. Now, when I was talking about a lot of higher priced inventory, this is also that too. 50.2% of the detached inventory is actually $700,000 and over, when the benchmark price, I believe right now, is around that low 600 number. And so a lot of detached homes are valued and actively trying to sell at 700,000 or more. They are still in a seller's market, and it actually dipped down a little bit there, right at the tail end into November here. Semi-detached homes, so their inventory is also dropping. Their sales has, at the last little bit here, has kind of been fairly flat. There's a lot less of these product than a detached home, but at the same time too, they're also still in a seller's market. We've got townhomes and row homes. So this is where we have seen the most amount of sales happen in our market right now. So townhouses and row houses, if you remember at the beginning of the year, when we talked about could townhomes and condos and row houses and condos, could they finally have their day? Well, this is it. They are finally starting to have a lot of sales. There's a lot of buyers who are adjusting what their expectations were, and they realized they couldn't get into the house, and now they're buying a townhouse instead. So there's a lot of buyers and a lot of sales that are happening in there. And specifically, I want to show this here and the next slide, but specifically you can see the townhouses have been in that seller's market for quite a while, like since, actually it looks like it's almost been a full year. If you pull straight down, because that's October, so roughly it's been almost a full year that the townhouses have actually finally been in a seller's market. So condos, this is the actual number of inventory for condos. I'm going to get this line straight because I want to show you, this is the November line, and this is how much our inventory is. A lot of inventory has been eaten up and purchased over the last 6 months. And not a lot of new stuff has necessarily come on the market, because you can see the gray line right there, that has dropped considerably too. This purple line, the one that I drew all the way through here, this is going back to 2014 and 2013. So we haven't seen inventories in apartments and condos in Calgary this low since 2014 and 2013. This is the first time we have had a plethora of condos for sale and available in the market, but they're actually starting to sell a lot quicker. And because of that, it's teensy tiny, but they've dipped into the seller's market across the city. Now, not every building is going to be in a seller's market, but generally speaking, condos in Calgary are now and have moved into a seller's market. I want to introduce you to two individuals who are on this video with me today. One is Tom Storey, and he is an agent, a team leader out in Toronto, and he's going to give us some insights and basically some numbers specifically about the city of Toronto and what's happening out there. And Steve Karrasch, he actually works in it's called the Fraser Valley, which is the suburbs of Vancouver. And so I have posed a few questions to them so you can get a sense. I mean, you heard all of my information about what's happening in the Calgary market right now, but I want to for those that are in Calgary, I want you to take a listen to this, because the thing is, the media will take numbers and create good stories. Now, what's actually happening in these areas, this is kind of what you see in the headlines, because these are our two major centers in Canada, right? And Calgary, we don't necessarily have the same clout that these cities do right now, because there's just less people here, is really what it comes down to. And so when you're seeing these headlines across Canada talking about the Canadian real estate market has dropped 22% this year, well, it hasn't everywhere. It has somewhere, and it has more in other places, but it hasn't everywhere, or whatever the numbers are saying. I'm not saying that that's the number, so don't quote me, but I'm just saying these are very general numbers across the country. So the first question that I have for you both is, what has the benchmark value done in Vancouver and Toronto since November 2019 until now?
Hey Jared, thanks so much for having me on your channel. I'm excited to do this. Let's go over what's really happening in the Toronto real estate market. When I'm talking about the benchmark price in the city of Toronto from 2019, what we're going to focus on is actually the city of Toronto, not the whole greater Toronto area, just the actual city. In November of 2019, the benchmark price in Toronto was $903,000. And the benchmark price right now in 2022 for the city of Toronto is just under 1.1 million, $1,090,000. That means since November 2019, on our benchmark price here in the city of Toronto, we've seen a 20% increase, or an actual dollar value, $186,000 of increased value.
All right, fantastic. So you heard them there. Toronto right now, since 2019 November, has seen a $186,000 increase, which is about a 20% increase since that time. So Steve, what do you got to say about this?
So these numbers I'm going to be sharing with you today are from the Fraser Valley board, or the suburbs of Vancouver. Not only because it's my particular trading area, but because, well, we've had the wildest swings. And let's face it, that's probably what the YouTube audience really wants to hear about. So if we look back to November 2019, the benchmark price for all real estate asset classes across the Fraser Valley was just a hair over $675,000. And today that number is over $995,000, representing a 47% increase over the last few years.
47% increase? That's insane. 47% increase, which is a $320,000 increase. So we have to answer the same question ourselves, right? So here we go. So Calgary, in 2019, we saw about our benchmark price was $429,700, and in 2022 was $523,900. And that equates to a $94,000 increase, which is 22%, which is nothing like Vancouver's suburbs. Sometimes percentages can be lost. It doesn't mean much without a dollar value attached to it. So seeing this, it kind of puts it in perspective a little bit, and actually seeing what has happened in these other cities, because we have a lot of people from Toronto and the Vancouver area who are looking at Calgary saying, I have cash, and see those numbers there? That's a part of it. And so what I want to ask you guys now is, detached homes only, from the peak in 2022, so the highest point that you had in 2022 to now, what has happened?
The benchmark price of a detached property in February in the peak of the market was $1,855,000 in the city of Toronto. If we fast forward to now, that price is $1,638,000. That represents an 11% decrease since the peak of the market for benchmark price for detached properties in Toronto, and a decrease in dollar value of $217,000.
All right, perfect. So $217,000. Thank you, Tom. And that's a big chunk of lost value. So what we're finding right now is, from Toronto people anyways, is they're a little bit hesitant on moving out here because they're like, well, my house was worth something and now it's not worth that. And so this is, if you see that or hear that or whatever it is in the news, I don't know, but this is what they're talking about. So Toronto saw 11% decrease from the peak this year. And how about you, Steve? What did Vancouver do at this same time frame?
The detached home price rose to $1.776 million in March of 2022. And now those values sit at $1,436,000, or almost a 20% drop in about 8 months.
20% drop in 8 months. 20% in 8 months. $340,000 for the Vancouver suburbs has been lost in 8 months. That's a lot of cash, a lot of cash. Now, you would think because Calgary saw a very similar increase in numbers from 2019 to now as Toronto did, right? It was around that 20%. But did we also see the same decrease? Not even close. Calgary was sitting in May, was our peak actually of the highest benchmark price at $546,000. And now we're sitting around $523,900, which equates to roughly $22,000 in lost value from our peak, which is only 4%. Now, when I'm always talking about there's this upward pressure of keeping our prices up, this is what I kind of mean when I say that. We have seen really big swings, really big hits when it comes from these other areas. And you can clearly see that in a chart like this. So what this chart is showing us is the yellow line here is Vancouver. This is your Toronto area. So Greater Vancouver. I know there's no Greater Vancouver, Steve, but that's what it's counting. Toronto area. And this little black line, you can kind of see it through here a little bit. That is Calgary. So since 2019, you can kind of tell this is roughly, let me make that straight. This is roughly your 2019 number. Vancouver saw a real big increase, and so did Toronto. But they've seen a very large decrease since their peak. I know there's a lot of writing on top of the chart there, but you can kind of get a sense of it. Here, I'll just erase some of this so you can see it again. Okay, and so you can see how that has played out. Since 2019 in Calgary, down here to now, that was a 20% increase, and we've barely seen any drops at all. So it's a very different market when you're actually starting to compare all of these different markets to each other. And when people are now looking at Calgary from other parts of the city or the country, they have this cash. And a lot of people are moving here and they have anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000, and they're looking to buy anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000 because they don't want to have a mortgage. Now, what many of you who are from those areas watching this, what you might want to truly consider, because there's a lot of options in the $600,000 to $1 million range, is to take out a small mortgage. Don't have to mortgage everything, but even if you took $200,000 or $100,000 mortgage out, it would potentially could completely change the type of home that you are finding in Calgary over the coming months. So I say that because when you're coming here, interview our team, because this is what we talk about all the time with our team. We have these ideas and these stats, we have the knowledge, and we know how to help you make that transition here. And so finally, what I want to hear from you guys, I know you're still on the call. So what will 2023 bring for your market? And are there still opportunities there? Let's hear from you first, Tom.
Right now in the city of Toronto, we're hovering around 13,000 active listings. To give that some context, in 2008, we were hovering around 25,000 active listings. Now, we have curbed the demand side of our market. Interest rates has done that for most of Canada. But on the supply side, it still hasn't really come. So there's still a bit of a standoff right now between buyers and sellers. And I think sales-wise, it will be quiet till the end of the year, but you're not seeing a whole lot of new inventory come to the market. It's mostly rollover inventory. And for the people that don't get the prices they're looking for, by about mid-December, they'll probably take their property off the market. We've seen a few months in a row now where the prices have started to hover. I think that will be the same in December, but a little bit lower because just historically, it's a lower sale price month. I think there's a lot of people that have been waiting and they want to jump in the market once they start seeing prices start tick back up again, right? Because you don't want to jump in when they're falling. But the reality is, I don't think we're going to see decreases in rates until maybe end of 2023, if not early 2024. So people making buying decisions now have to do so on the fact that they're going to own this property for minimum the next 5 years. We would still need prices to drop another 10% from where they are right now for the monthly payments to actually be less than they were earlier in the year, even with higher prices.
Where do I see the market going in 2023? Well, I think we're for sure going to have lower sales volume. I expect actually fewer sales than the 10-year average. Currently, listing inventory is actually on the decline again, and although I don't see a massive amount of listings flooding to the market, I do expect that in the coming 12 months, with interest rates rising in the way that they have, that will push a small percentage of the new homeowners or maybe investors to sell. But the overall market will continue to decline into the spring, but at a much lower pace than it has over the last 6 months. And then the rest of the year is going to depend on the Bank of Canada, because let's face it, the rate hikes that we've seen, nobody saw coming at this time last year. So to try and guess a year from now, good luck to you. But is there opportunity in the Vancouver and Fraser Valley market? Well, yeah, there always is. But if you expect affordability to improve, meaning that you will get the same home for lower payments, I don't see that happening. The real opportunity, however, is likely for investment in 2023, because the BC government just removed a ton of restrictions on stratified properties that will really benefit both renters and investors.
That is some great information. And I agree that interest rates changes. We could see some people trying to or needing to sell. But I actually think that a lot of people are going to hold on to their properties a lot longer, and we're not going to see foreclosure situations, and we're not going to see this like desperate need to sell. Because what I believe that you should be doing if you're in that situation is, one, if you're going to downsize or try to sell that property this coming year, the problem with it is where are you going to go? And you're still going to have higher costs because rents are so high. It doesn't matter if it's Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto, doesn't matter where you are going to have higher rents. And so you're still going to have that high cost associated with everything. So it's probably better to figure out how to stay in that property. And sometimes that's looking at ways to kind of leverage the house, have more income, rent out a room, rent out a basement, rent out a garage, or try to have family move in to offset some of those costs too. We might see that happening. Now, affordability, this is Calgary's game. This is where we are winning. And some of my thoughts, and like you just said, Steve, and I know Toronto's very similar. We have some videos coming out where we just visited Toronto, and we talked a lot about this with a lot of agents out in the GTA, and you kind of say affordability and they kind of chuckle. They kind of laugh at you, and that's kind of crazy in my mind. But what happens is Calgary is affordable. Calgary has affordability and it has the lifestyle. So there's a lot of investors who are looking at Calgary, putting money here, feeling it's one of the last final places that's safe in our country because of the affordability. Renters, owners, all that kind of stuff, it still is affordable. Now, if you've grown up in Calgary, you could probably feel the complete opposite and say, it is not affordable. How can you live in the city? It's so expensive. But when you start comparing it to other major cities, which Calgary is and is becoming, and whether you agree or not, that's fine, it's really affordable. And if you have found this helpful, we would love for you to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it to someone who needs to hear this, because right now there's a lot of confused individuals, confused consumers that are out there who don't know what to do. And so they just aren't looking at the real numbers. So share this with someone. Make me a promise. Share it to one person, because that's going to help us get our message out there. And that's going to help us be able to help you and your friends and your family make really, really good decisions when you're buying and selling houses here in Calgary, because we want to help you do that. So go do that, and let's check out this next video.